Hey, it's Dave from the Camera Store. We're here at the crack of dawn at Frank Lake, which is a bird sanctuary southeast of Calgary. And I'm wearing camouflage for the first time in my life, and I'm seeing if the Sony 2-600 is the ultimate birding lens. About a year ago, Sony dropped two big lenses, and one was the 600 f4 G Master lens, which came with a very high price tag. They also brought out the 2-600 5.6 to 6.3 lens, which I think is a much more versatile and certainly a much more economical lens. Today I'm going to walk you through a few reasons why I love this lens for shooting wildlife, and also give you some tips and tricks for shooting some long glass along the way. When it comes to shooting birds in sports and action, autofocus speed is very, very important. And the Sony 2-600 is fantastic that way. It employs what's called DDSSM motors, so it's direct drive supersonic motors. This allows it to move the optics very quickly to keep up with really fast transitions when it comes to focusing. Now team it up with the A9 Mark II at 20 frames per second, and it's a very impressive combination. Another benefit of the DDSSM motors in these lenses is that they are extremely quiet. That's a big benefit when you're in the environment where you need to be completely quiet. Let me walk you through how I have my A9 Mark II set up for shooting today. On the top left dial, I have it set for autofocus continuous, which I need to track action. You press the function button, go to focus area, and scroll all the way down to where it says tracking, and then tab over to where it says tracking wide. And then go into the menu system and find the face and eye detection set, subject detection, animal, and you are good to go. This unleashes Sony's real-time autofocus tracking, which is a very powerful program on these cameras. What this does is it lets the camera decide where it wants to focus, and it aggressively hangs on to whatever the action is. When it comes to shooting wildlife, often the early morning hours are the best time to shoot it. The animals tend to be more active, and we get this gorgeous golden light. Now the sun has come up a little bit here, and we've kind of exhausted this little section here. We're going to hop in the truck and try a different spot out. Now, when you're driving around the prairies here, quite often you're going to find some form of hawk hanging out on a fence post. And we have to have one just up ahead here, and it's beautiful. So a few shots of that one, and maybe it might even make some noise for us. We just went for a short drive. We found there's a huge flock of pelicans, I think, out there, and hopefully a bunch of other varieties. Now, with a 2-600, we still need to get reasonably close to get some shots. This lens is compatible with Sony's 1.4 and 2x teleconverter. The 2x teleconverter would give us our biggest reach, giving us a 1200mm reach, which is great. However, we're shooting at f13, which is going to limit our shutter speeds, especially in lower light situations. We're going to sit back in this tall grass here for just a couple minutes and see if we can not spook the birds, because some of the smaller birds are certainly very flighty. Now we're getting closer and closer to these pelicans and some other birds I see in the marsh here, and I'm really impressed with the sharpness of this lens. I'm also noticing there's not a lot of ghosting or flaring when I'm shooting into tricky lighting situations where the sun is directly in front of me. And that's due in part to the nano AR coatings. I am noticing I do like the fall off of this lens. The bokeh that it's producing is quite nice. Now it's not going to be anywhere as extreme as a 400-2.8 or the 600 f4. Certainly going to be a nicer look to it, but a significantly higher price point. I'm very pleased with how this lens is performing, and I like the look of it. Just in that little patch of weeds over there is an orange-breasted warblesucker. It's a tough name to say. I prefer to call him Steve. So I'm going to find Steve. Something I really appreciate about this lens is that it's all internal zooming. It means when I rotate the zoom mechanism, it doesn't extend or retract the lens whatsoever. It's the same size and shape no matter what focal range I'm at. The other thing I'm really appreciating, especially on these fleeting moments that kind of pop up in birds here and there, is that the zoom ring is a 90-degree twist from 200 to 600. That makes framing my shot or reframing a shot very quick and easy. Another design feature I really like about this lens is the removable tripod collar foot. This allows me to put on third-party options. For instance, this is the Kirk Enterprise one that gives me Arca Swiss plate. Now I can switch it onto my tripod without any problem. And a trick feature is this D-ring is a push button here. Now I can take off my strap, put this onto a tripod, and I'm ready to go. Often when it comes to wildlife photography, you're spending a lot of time walking around great distances, and size and weight is certainly going to play a factor in it. Now, this lens isn't a lightweight, but comes in at about 2.1 kilograms, and for the versatility of it, it's not bad at all. I haven't even broken up my monopod yet. I'm doing most of the shooting today all handheld. We have a beautiful sunny day here today. This lens is dust and moisture resistant, and that's going to come in handy at some point, I know. As with most modern telephoto lenses, we do have optical stabilization built into the lens. What that means is that there's an element inside this lens that actually floats. It moves up and down and side to side, and it compensates for your natural camera shake. Now on this lens, we have 3 different modes of that, which is very neat. Mode 1 is for general compensation. So as I'm just moving and trying to do a steady shot, it's going to compensate in all directions. Mode 2 is something if I'm doing a lot of panning work. You don't want that optical stabilization to be fighting against your natural action if you're moving side to side. And mode 3 is more for sporadic action. I've been shooting mostly mode 3 today. When you are shooting birds in flight, the thing is though, you have to have your shutter speed up fairly high, so stabilization is really not going to have an effect as far as the image quality goes. Where it does help me out a lot though, is when I'm looking through the viewfinder, I'm seeing a stabilized shot, and that really helps you with your composition. Thought I'd give you guys a little insight to how I'm shooting. Now when I'm using long glass like this, there's a few things you have to take into consideration. That stabilization starts with you, and being able to have a very steady platform is going to help you out. So I like to start with, first get your balance nice and straight, and tuck your elbows in. Nice good grip on the camera. Press it up against your eyebrow like this so that you are as solid as you can possibly be and taking away as much vibration from the camera as you can. The other thing I'm finding when I'm shooting birds in flight or any kind of sports in action is that you tend to be twisting quite a bit like this. So be kind of prepared, right? If you know the birds are going to be predictably kind of flying one direction or the other, don't have yourself where you're like at the very end shooting over like this. Twist a little bit more so you can actually follow them in a much more fluid action yourself. Now something I'm learning today is you need to have a lot of patience, and I don't have a lot of patience when it comes to shooting birds. I've discovered they don't listen very well, they don't sit, they don't stay, and they don't look when they're supposed to be looking, and they often fly away when I get too close. So it does take a lot of time and a lot of patience for this, but it's nice to step back and just kind of relax and watch them and sort of take your time, and they do get more comfortable with you if you stay there, and then you can get some really cool shots as they get more and more comfortable with your presence. When it comes to birds in flight, I don't like using a monopod at all, but if I'm just observing wildlife for long periods of time, it's much easier to use a monopod because it takes all the weight off of it, and you can sit and sort of concentrate on it. Now, once you frame up your shot, I often find I rest my hand on top of the lens and just sort of take a deep breath and exhale out and take a shot. I tend to get a little sharper shot with lower shutter speeds. After spending the morning shooting this great area, I really like the 2-600 for 3 reasons: image quality, focusing speed, and value for the money. This lens is a G lens, not a G master lens. It doesn't have that distinction, but don't let that throw you off. It is a very sharp lens. Now 5.6 to 6.3 you think might be a little limiting, and it can be in very low light situations. But on a day like today when we're in fairly good light, I'm not having any problems at all getting the shutter speeds I need to get those birds in flight. With regards to autofocus speed, this lens is easily able to keep up with the A9 Mark II and its real-time autofocus tracking. Throughout the day I had a lot of passes where birds were flying straight at me, and it was easily able to keep up with it. And finally, when it comes to the value of this lens, I think it represents itself very well. We get a great performing lens with a really nice design at a very reasonable price on the market. I of course want to know what you guys think of this lens, and can you identify any of these birds that I've shot today, because I certainly cannot. Make sure you leave those comments down below, and follow us on Instagram, and please subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll catch you again next time. Hey, if you can still see me and you want to check out our latest episode, click up here. If you want to check out the gear used in this review, click down here.